guys, thank you for joining us on our second live stream workshop. Today we're going to be focusing on parenting communications. We'll be hosting a number of these online events on a variety of topics such as parenting, mindfulness, communication, marriage, stress, and other topics that kind of matter to you. Our mission at NLCC is to help our entire community grow and connect and heal, even if that person never steps into our office. In order to do that, we're hosting live stream events that will be available afterwards on YouTube in case you want to watch them again or send a link to a friend. Our clinicians are present also with live local organizations and businesses for presentations, so check out our website to regularly find out what's happening and where we're going to be. If you're interested in us presenting to your business or organization, please call or email us. This program is funded by the generous support of our donors. Without donations from individuals such as you, we are unable to provide these workshops and seminars to our community free of charge. So please consider making a donation or give to our campaign, Project Peace of Mind. More info on that can be found on our website. So without further ado, our topic for tonight is parenting communication. We're going to kind of break this down into a couple of different areas to kind of get the breadth of the topic covered. We're going to start out first by talking about where they're at, so developmentally where teens are at, because that kind of helps shape how we can then enter with them communication-wise. Then once we've established that, we're going to focus on, well, what do they need in their communications with their parents? What are they really looking for process-based with them? And then what does that look like in practice? You know, because though we can kind of talk about logistically what they would need from communications with their parents, how do we practice that? Finally, we're going to kind of talk about a little bit of self-care that can go into this, because raising teenagers is really hard, and figuring out how to integrate that. And if you have any questions after that, we'll respond to those. Okay? So, to get started, developmentally, I kind of want to start with Erikson's developmental model. He talks about identity versus role confusion. It's a stage that starts at 12, goes to 18. During this stage, adolescents are really looking for that sense of self, trying to have that personal identity that might come through in having a favorite sweater or bracelet that makes them different, or exploring different kind of world populations. And it can happen in a variety of ways. And through this, they're sort of having this intense exploration of their personal values and their beliefs and what they want their goals to be. And this is all really important, but really hard for kids to go through, because they're having to have this shift. He talks about how, in addition to this, that often this is when adolescents kind of have awareness of their body that, that's growing and changing. And so this can also be impacted in this stage. But at the end of all of this, he kind of makes a synopsis of them finding fidelity in whom they are. And when someone has successfully found that, they're able to kind of have a committed view of self, understanding that they can accept themselves and others, even though they might be different from them, but that's okay based on their secure base. In addition to this, I kind of want to talk about the societal tasks that go on in this developmental stage that are pretty important. So you're shifting from middle school to high school in this age range. That's a huge transition as far as like academic expectations of independence, also having a spread out peer group and being exposed to other peers. So that can, again, when you're trying to find your personal values and your beliefs and goals, you have all this new information you're integrating, and it's really great, but it's a tough thing to do. In addition to that, the intensity of competition is changing. They're having to really step in this academic ring where GPAs are a thing, where sports are being more competitive, where relationships are changing, and though that's cool and exciting, it's also very scary for kids, because relationships that they've had since they were young are now developing and shifting as people try to find their own personal values and beliefs as well. So those are all kind of things that are going on in addition to this. We already touched on the body image, but further I kind of want to talk about that in like a biological sense. Kids are going through puberty, and so their body image very literally is getting challenged by changing, and how they choose to integrate that, or how they have been shaped and primed to integrate that transition. So, what does this mean? What do they need? So, in communications with parents, I think a short and quick way to think about it is, in communications, we're shifting from the parent being the executive to the parent being the consultant. And this is a really cool shift because it's one saying that you're doing your job and your kids are growing up and they're becoming adults, and that's so cool and precious. But it's also terrifying because instead of being able to come in and make these choices for your children and really help them and shape them in a more stringent way, you have to give them space in order to come to you as the consultant. So as teens kind of push for more and more autonomy, the parents have to sort of negotiate this role change. And I just kind of want to preface before I go any further that this does not mean you don't set boundaries. I once heard a quote that is a parent's job to set boundaries and it's a child's job to push boundaries. And that's true. So by no means by being the consultant, when again, you know your child, you know how much that would be applicable in their range of behavior. But as you're changing this consultant role, figuring out how to put these boundaries that allow them to kind of stumble a little bit or succeed. It's not really about them having a perfect, development of choices and making the right ones, but it's about having conversations with them where they're able to come to you and consult and to have reassurance, and that there's that vulnerability in your communications that allows them to feel competent even if they stumble. So what does that look like in practice? Again, another quick and easy is get curious, not critical, right? So as you're not the executive, you're the consultant. You're there to be curious and to inspire this internalized reflection, to like build competence. It's very hard to see people stumble, especially your children who you care about greatly, stumble and maybe make a wrong choice. So it's really important to think about, when you get curious, not critical, that you're entering in a way that's curious and that is listening to hear. That's a really important communication skill just in general, but listening to hear rather than listening to respond to them, because teens are already feeling pretty misunderstood or like no one knows them. So really trying to hear their point of view. And this might not go over great 100% of the time. Actually, it might not go over great like 50% of the time, because teens feel pretty angsty, and that's okay. That's their job to be angsty. But it's your job as the parent to really try to be present in a way that's going to continue to feel like they can attach to you. So some quick steps to kind of think about when having a conversation with them is, like I said, listen to hear, reflect that back to them. So what that does, kind of going off of what Kay was talking about, and I don't know if you caught her video, it was great, where it's stop and pause and sort of turn and reflect on yourself and how you're feeling in that moment. This is not in a disciplinary kind of way, but when you're hearing them, reflect on how it's making you feel, because how you feel when you're listening to your child in this conversation is going to come out in your tone and your prosody, and like you want to be able to try to shape that to be non-judgmental so that they are going to be more apt to hear you as well. Also, the next thing after listening to hear, reflecting back, taking a pause before you reflect back, is also just expressing support. And that could look like a variety of ways. That doesn't mean that you necessarily support that choice, but it's sort of supporting that development of self, that you trust that they can, formulate a value system and goals that are reflective of the person that you know your child can be. And this might be digging deep sometimes, when you've taken the iPhone for the 18th time and they're screaming at you and you're like, you're a wonderful person. But truly, everyone can find something about their child that they truly value and appreciate. And that's that moment where you dig deep and you kind of try to let that expression of, I know this is your potential and I'm going to sit in the dirt with you while you figure out how to get there. The next thing that I kind of want to talk about is how you don't problem solve for them necessarily. This is, again, not a catch-all statement at all, but figure out what you feel comfortable with letting them solve for themselves. Again, when we were talking about listening to hear, reflect, and expressing support, the end wasn't giving them a solution. Obviously, in certain situations, that may be necessary, but for the most part, giving them that opportunity to know that they can come to their own solution and that you trust that they can come to that solution. So the next thing that I kind of want to talk about is when things go wrong, essentially. So what are like communication pitfalls with teens, and how do we deal with those? One that's really, really big is when things start to escalate. So say it's time to take the cell phone again. It's a really common one. So, shocker, I know. But and feelings-based discussion's not going on. It's content-based. So what that means is, I'm taking your phone. No, you're not taking my phone. It's my phone. I'm taking your phone. You're getting stuck into the yaha, right? So that's all content-based. It's about the action of taking it versus the process of what's going on. The child, when they're having their independence taken away, is feeling you don't trust them to manage themselves, which they might have proven that they can't, honestly. But that's how they're feeling, and that's important that they're able to feel that and that you're able to attend to that feeling. And when they're refusing to give you the phone, you're probably feeling pretty disrespected. So instead of turning it into, give me your phone, no, I'm not giving you my phone. Lay the boundary of the phone being gone, and then enter back in with how you're feeling. Like, when you're making the choice not to hand me the phone, I'm feeling kind of disrespected by you. And I'm feeling like, and then you can maybe make a guess and try to see if they'll enter into the correct. And I'm feeling you're feeling like I don't respect that you can handle this yourself. And they might respond, they might not. But that way you're making a shift. It's not a power struggle anymore. It's about your relationship. And that's being communicated pretty clearly. So that's one way to deal with that when things escalate. Other pitfalls that occur often in parent-child communications on both sides is minimizing and invalidating. Emotional pain and distress is a subjective thing. Is not a set, you have this loss, you feel this pain. Everyone has a different context, everyone has a different support system, and these things really dictate how they feel, in addition to biological predispositions to need certain things. And so when children come to their parents with problems that are truly distressing to them, as much as you might feel like that's not something that would upset you, it's important to try to empathize and to meet them where they're at in that. Again, this isn't really a two-way street sometimes, and that's the exhausting part of watching parents go through this is, you might be trying to meet your child there and you're feeling like this is they're taking cookies out of the cookie jar and not putting it back in. But that is very, very normal for this stage. Doesn't make it easy, but it's normal. So that's one thing to avoid. The next thing is a reframe that I really like to share with people I work with is, what do you want to prioritize in your relationship with your child? So there's obviously going to be content things. So chores or rules or things that need to be prioritized in your relationship, right? Like being home at a certain time or getting your homework done. Those things are all very important. But it also kind of circles back to this, get curious, not critical. How do you want to connect with your kids? Because if you're not connected, if they're not feeling heard, then they're not going to necessarily abide by content level things. So it's important to think about, what do I want to prioritize in this moment when you're frustrated or angry with your child? Do you want to prioritize the homework assignment or do you want to prioritize the connection? Because the homework assignment is important, but if you're not having that connection, your child's not able to kind of come to you, it's going to lower the chance of them then being able to use you as a problem-solving tool for those content-based issues. So it's an important thing to kind of think about. So before we get into the self-care, I just want everyone to take a second, take a deep breath in, and think about something or a moment or a memory when they just really enjoyed their child. Because that's why you're here, right? Because you enjoyed that moment with your child, that you enjoyed that time, that quality, that value in your child, and really grounding yourself in that. Because parenting is really hard and teenagers are really rough. It's rough out there. And so this is where we're going to go into self-care, okay? Because there's that child, that beautiful baby, whatever expectations you had when they were born, when you looked at them. And this is how we're going to transition. So how do you be that best person for that kid? So self-care. Is very uncomfortable to watch your child go through this building of their sense of autonomy and sense of self. So it's important to have people to talk to. I would challenge everyone to come up with a list of at least 3 people that they can use as just supports in life. So this doesn't have to be about your kid. This could be about, you might not want to share what's going on with your child. That's okay. That's a pretty vulnerable thing to share about your child because they're important to you. but just being able to share about life stress. Or if you can't share about life stress, just go do something that is lowering your stress level, like getting your nails done or taking a walk in the park or something like that. And keep those 3 handy, okay? In your wallet and your phone, wherever you got. Then I would challenge you to have at least 1 or 2 people that you can share your distress with. So if something's going on with your child, that you can talk to them about, whether that's a co-parent, spouse, a grandparent, your best friend, someone who knows your child and knows you, and you're going to be able to come to them and not be judged. And, this is the part where it's hard to not stay in that place. So I challenge you also to choose people that are going to have a little bit of flexible thinking too, where they're going to be able to hear what's going on and still view your child as like, well, yeah, that's going on, but they're a good person, because at the end of the day, your parents and your defense of your kids. So you don't want people who are going to be thinking lesser of your child, because then that's going to just perpetuate the problem. We don't want to do that. Anyway, so the next thing for self-care is finding ways to communicate that aren't stressful. Gottman did research on couples, and he had a ratio of like 5 to 1. Positive to negative statements helped either make or break their relationship. And that research has been replicated. It's kind of varied a little bit. Some people are like 7 to 1 or 4 to 1 ratio. But at the end of the day, the message is it takes more positive messages to improve a relationship than negative ones. And as kids are going through this hard time and they're really valuing their friend group a little bit more hierarchically, higher than their family unit at times, it's important to find a way to connect and communicate on non-conflictual topics. Because when we have these negative interactions, it primes us to react a certain way. So sort of like if there was a hand buzzer that zapped you, right? Like the cheesy old joke. And you go to shake this person's hands and you keep getting shocked and shocked and shocked. When you go to shake their hand, if you even do shake their hand, you're going to kind of pull away because you're going to feel like you're going to get shocked. So what we want is for your kid to not feel like every time you're communicating, it's an argument. Every time you're communicating, it's a challenge, that there's something being told that's negative. We want to sort of even out that ratio and have something that's positive. Again, this is why we took the moment to be like, why do you enjoy your child? Because this is where you're pulling on that. You want to figure out ways of which you can be with them in a cohesive way. So I just wanted to kind of end by saying that raising a teenager is hard, and communicating effectively with them is even harder sometimes, but you can do it. And if someone you know could benefit from talking to a therapist about this, feel free to use them. It's a great resource, We really want to build this sense of, if you had a cold, or, well, you know, if you're cold, but if you were sick, you'd go to your primary care. If you're struggling with something with mental health, or you want help, go to a therapist. Anyways, so as I scroll down, Allison, are we good? Any questions or no? If not, I'll wrap it up.
We're good.
All right. Well, it's a pleasure talking with you guys. And again, if you think that you could benefit from any of our services, feel free to call us at 484-746-3112. You can also check us out at www.newlondoncounselingcenter.com. It's our mission to help families in our community grow and connect and heal. We're a nonprofit organization, and we provide financial assistance for families who otherwise can't afford to pay for counseling. In order to keep our doors open and continue to provide for those families, though, we do rely on donations. So please consider donating to our mission, no matter how small. Every single dollar helps, In addition to providing clinical services, we also want to keep doing educational seminars or workshops like this one you just watched. So if you have topics, email us. We'd love to hear about it. We really want to, integrate with the community. We hope that you enjoyed this conversation and were able to take away at least one thing that will benefit you or your family. And if so, please consider making a donation now. We started our end-of-year campaign. It's called Project Peace of Mind. Great name, I know. Anyways, visit us at www.newlondoncounselingcenter.com to make your donation today. Thank you for watching, and we wish you peace of mind.